for Off the Block. I'm Vinny Lopes, and we are now joined by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee Chairman Ron Shayka after the bracket was unveiled yesterday. And Ron, I want to ask you, it's always a challenge every year, I know, piecing together this bracket, but what do you feel was maybe one of the biggest challenges this year in putting together the 16 field?
Well, every year there's different kinds of challenges, and schools have unique situations, and it was probably it was a little bit of who the at-large teams would be and a little bit the seeding, and there's always some combination of that every year, but those are the two things that always cause us to spend a lot of time poring over the numbers, and after doing so, I think we came to a real good consensus as to how that field was ultimately picked.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the final at-large bid. I know that in our projections, and we could have been wrong with this, we had really a close call between Stanford and Long Beach State. Long Beach State ultimately got the at-large bid. So what was it about Long Beach State that put them over the top compared to a team like Stanford?
Well, without going into those specifics of each and every criteria there, we took everything into account, and a couple of things that we have done, and I have mentioned in the past, is that we look at the RPI as a way of sort of gathering all the different criteria and giving us one composite, and that was always something that we looked toward. And another thing that we looked at this year, as we have in the past, is cross-conference play, and that was weighted in our decision as well, and we looked at that, and as you may know, it's not always strictly as simple as a one-loss percentage, but it's a number of contests, it's strength of opponents, it's a number of things that go into it. It's difficult to just put a check mark by a piece of criteria that oftentimes it's a little bit of apples and oranges, and so we have to look at it subjectively sometimes as much as we do objectively.
Right. And, the other one that I want to ask about in terms of the seeding, UCLA seeded as the number two seed, Ohio State the number 3. How much did the UCLA's win against Ohio State in the head-to-head play into that decision of having the Bruins ranked at the number 2?
Again, historically, Vinny, we have always valued head-to-head competition as an important element of evaluation, and we looked at that as we do all head-to-head competitions, and weighted it pretty importantly, mainly because the other numbers were so close as far as RPI and things of that nature. So head-to-head is very important, and we hear it so often is that when you're trying to compare teams, you want to know how did they do against each other. And here we did have something at the very end when everything else was as close as it was. We said, look, there's a match that they played each other, and we've got a result. And the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind too, as far as historical perspective and how at least the committees over the years have looked at things, and that is that even though the match was played early in the season, it's still a match, and we value matches early in the season, we value them late in the season, and we don't ever want to discredit schools from having a win in January and say, well, that didn't really matter because that happened a long time ago. Hopefully going forward, schools will be encouraged to play matches early in January and realize that they're valuable pieces of determining what their total body of work looks like.
And, I want to ask you, because I know the last couple of years there's been a big point of emphasis among the committee to have more non-conference matches. Do you feel that message is going to be continued, reinforced, and we're going to see more non-conference matches in 2017 and 2018 based on the last couple of years of the selection process?
I think 2016 has kind of already answered that question a little bit. If you can see where some schools have taken it to heart, and they're really trying to strengthen their schedule and bolster their chances for a postseason at-large spot, because they're making the effort to get out and play some cross conference matches, and that if we're consistent with our message judge in our evaluation, then I think that going forward, that schools will realize that to give themselves the best chance, they'll try to pick up strong non-conference matches, as many of them as they can, within their budget and within their travel limitations. But I think so far it's working, and I think it's helping the sport.
And, I want to ask you, because you've been on the committee many times, many years. This year it's a little bit different because there's a bit of a long layover, in between Selection Sunday and the first playing match. Usually it's only 2 days, sometimes 4 days, and this year we have a 10-day break. Is it weird for you at all having this much time off in between the Selection Sunday and the playing matches?
Well, that's a good question, because it really has allowed us to have a little bit of a breather and not be scurrying onto a flight or making travel plans to get out of town in a day or two. And I think that that's going to also help the teams in their preparation for the championship. And also you have to also look at the logistics for the NCAA travel as well. And having that a little bit of time also makes our tournament a little bit more economical. And again, it's not an endless spout of money out there, so we're happy that our tournament can be a little bit more economical, and hopefully what you saw there is that we were able to bring all 6 teams to the championship site, and that was something that wasn't automatically going to happen, but with a little bit of extra time, airfare is a little bit more favorable, and it fell into place.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm excited about all 3 rounds being at Penn State, and I want to ask you, you are an associate athletic director at George Mason. You're involved in the EIVA. How excited are you to have the NCAA tournament back on the East Coast and have an EIVA school being the host this year?
That's always a positive, and I talk about the benefits to the sport, and being able to bring the championship out east is a real positive for the sport. And Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, has strong boys volleyball, and as does New York, and even teams into New Jersey and Maryland. So what we like to do is try to get the sport out in front of as many people as possible, and bringing it out east is one way to do it.